Hello, welcome to Meteors TV. If today is your first time here, please kindly subscribe to the channel and press on the notification button. In these tutorials, we are looking at anatomy. Anatomy is the study or a branch of biology concerned with the study of the structure of organisms and their parts. Concerned with the study of the structure of organisms and their parts, the various structures of organisms, using the head for example. The head is a part of living organism, that's human being. So how the various parts of the head function in the organism, that is what anatomy is talking about. Now, anatomy is also a branch of natural science that deals with the structural organization of living things. How these structures are being organized in living organisms. The various structures should be organized in such a way that it will help in the functioning of that particular organism. It is also an old science having its beginnings in prehistoric times. Now let's look at some of the branches of anatomy. There are several branches or types of anatomy, including gross anatomy, microscopic anatomy, human anatomy, phototomy, zootomy, embryology, and comparative anatomy. Now, each branch is focused on a specific part of the study of anatomy. So, all these types is having a particular focus in anatomy. For example, microscopic anatomy, it is talking about the microscopic organisms, their various structures and their functions. And also human anatomy, it is talking about the various structures of living organisms or human being, for example, and their function, how they function in the movements, reproduction, and the rest in the human body. Also, when we are asked what is anatomical position and what is it important, why is it important to position an organism anatomically? Now, in the first place, we have to know what anatomical position means. Then we know why it is important to position an organism anatomically. Anatomical position is the position with the body erect, with the arms at the side and the palms forward. The palms should be facing forward. Also, the body should be erect. When we say erect, it should be upright. The body should be upright with our arms at the side of the body, and it should be open a bit so that the palms will be facing forward. The anatomical position is of importance in anatomy because it is the position of reference for anatomical nomenclature. We are saying that it is important to position an organism anatomical because it is the position of reference for anatomical nomenclature. Now let's look at the anatomical position. If you look at the arrow, it is showing upright. It has been directed upright. It means that the body should be erect or it should be upright. We have the right side and the left side. Now you could see that I am having red ink on the head, the palms, and the feet. So this is how the body should be positioned anatomically. 1. Standing upright. 2. Head and eyes directed straight ahead. 3. Upper limbs at the sides. The upper limbs, you are talking about the arms. Your arms should be at your sides. Upper limbs slightly away from the trunk. Your upper limbs should be open a bit. That is what it means, a bit from the trunk, or it should be a little bit away from the trunk. Palms facing forward, as I said earlier. Thumbs pointing away from the body. Your thumbs shouldn't be pointing to the body. It should be rather away from the body. Lower limbs parallel. Lower limbs parallel. When we talk about the lower limbs, we are talking about the feet. It should be parallel to each other. And the last, we have feet flat on the ground and facing forward. Your feet should be facing forward and then flat on the ground. Anatomical planes, how the body is being divided and so forth. We use planes in anatomy to divide the body, either to the right side, left side, front, back, transverse. We use planes, and these are the 3 main planes used in anatomy. We have coronal plane or frontal plane. 2. Sagittal plane or lateral plane. And also we have axial plane or transverse plane. So we are going to look at each of these one after the other. Let's look at the coronal plane. The coronal plane is an anatomical plane that divides the body into dorsal and ventral section. Now, when we talk about dorsal, when you are viewing from the back, that is the dorsal, or we can say that from the back, the dorsal, and ventral is from the front. So when the body is divided into front and back, that is the plane used to divide the body. Coronal plane. It divides the body into front and back. That's the dorsal and ventral section of the body. It is perpendicular to the sagittal and transverse plane. When we say perpendicular, it means they meet at a point. So the coronal plane meets at a point with the sagittal plane and transverse plane. And the Latin for coronal plane is plana coronalia. Plana coronalia. Now let's look at this figure. You can see that the deep line is showing how coronal plane is dividing the body into dorsal and ventral. That's front and back. We have coronal plane. We are saying it divides the body into 2, which is front and back, or dorsal and ventral. So looking at the deep line, it is showing how it divides the body anatomically into front and back. Also, we have sagittal plane, as said earlier. The sagittal plane is an anatomical plane that divides the body into right and left sections. So as corona is dividing into front and back, the sagittal plane also divides into right and left. It is perpendicular to the transverse and coronal plane. It means that it also meets the corona and transverse at a particular point. The plane may be in the center of the body and divide it into 2 equal parts, or away from the midline and divide it into unequal parts. So in this plane, either it can be at the middle and divide it into 2 equal parts, or away from the middle and divide it into unequal parts. So let's look at this. Now this one is at the middle, and it is dividing it into two equal parts. And we said we can also have it away from the middle, and it will rather divide it into unequal part instead of equal parts. Last but not the least, as we said, the transverse plane is an anatomical plane that divides the body into superior and inferior section. Into superior up and inferior down. So this one crosses the body into up and down, or it divides it up and down. So you get the upper part and then the lower part. It is perpendicular to the coronal and sagittal plane. So this plane also meets the coronal and sagittal at a particular point. Latin, we have plana transversalia. Plana transversalia. So this is how it divides the body, up and down. Up and down. It's cross the body to divide it into superior and inferior. Superior means up and inferior means down. So let's look at these three main coronal planes. Now we have the median or the median plane, and we have coronal plane, we have transverse plane. The median plane is also the sagittal plane, and we said it divides the body into left and right. It divides the body into left and right. Let's look at the corona. We said the corona also divides it front and back. Then the transverse into up and down, the inferior and the superior. This diagram summarizes everything. We have the sagittal plane, as we can see over here. It is dividing it, that's the violent ache. It is dividing it into left and right. Dividing into left and right. Let's look at the green ink, that is the coronal plane. Also divides it front and back, as it has been explained. And transverse superior. So as you can see, the arrow pointing upwards. Over here we have superior, and down here we have inferior. That is how the transverse divides the body. Now we have the medial. We said that when the sagittal plane runs through the media, it means it will divide the body into two. But when it's away from the media, it will divide it into two unequal parts. The parts will not be equal as compared to when it runs through the media point or the middle. We have lateral, we have posterior from the back, as said earlier. We have anterior from the front, or you can get dorsal and ventral. So this brings us to the end of this episode. Look forward to seeing me in the next episode. Thank you.